You ever see a man think money gives him a crown? This billionaire walked into a tiny diner like he owned the air, the chairs, the salt shaker, pointed at a waitress like she was a joke playing on loop, laughed loud enough to make the whole room quiet, and said, "You don't even speak proper English, do you? Smile and fetch my coffee." The whole place leaned in like it was a circus, snapping their popcorn fingers. But he didn't know two things about her. She spoke Japanese, cleaner than most people speak manners. She kept a ledger of the kind of receipts that don't just embarrass rich folks, they ruin them. So he tossed his insult like a pebble, thinking it'd ripple and be forgotten. Instead, it hit a woman who hears insult as a challenge and knows how to use words like a scalpel. She answered him in perfect Japanese, called him out for his charity, scams, his tax dodges, and the hush money deals he paid to keep problems buried. And when the local kids pulled out their phones to record, that pebble turned into an avalanche. You want to stay for the whole thing? Good, because by the time we finish, he won't just be red-faced. He'll be trying to explain to lawyers why his empire smells like smoke. Stick around, this one's going to be raw. People love to act bold when they think nobody understands them. And this billionaire, he was the king of that fake confidence. He walked into the little sushi restaurant like he owned the whole block, dripping ego from head to toe. The staff bowed politely. Customers stayed quiet. And he sat down like the world owed him applause. But everything changed the moment the waitress walked up. A young black woman, smiling, calm, just trying to do her job. And that's when the billionaire leaned back, smirked, and started running his mouth in Japanese. Ugly comments, disrespect, mocking her looks, her walk, her voice, her job. Talking like she was too dumb to understand a single word. The whole restaurant froze. People heard him, but nobody moved. Nobody knew what to say. And he kept going, louder, meaner, laughing, like he was untouchable. Because rich folks like him truly believe nobody can check them. What he didn't know was that this ordinary waitress wasn't ordinary at all. She had a past he could have never imagined. Skills he didn't expect. And receipts that were about to flip his whole billionaire image upside down, because when she finally looked him dead in the eyes and replied in perfect Japanese, the entire restaurant stopped breathing. That was the moment he realized. He messed with the wrong woman, and by the time she exposed what he'd been hiding, his wealth, his reputation, and his freedom were all suddenly on the line. The story kicks off on a rainy Tuesday evening in a fancy downtown fusion restaurant. The kind of spot where the plates are tiny, the prices are stupid, and the customers think they own the air you breathe. Maya was wiping down a table by the window, tired but steady. She wasn't some random waitress trying to survive the night. She was sharp, calm, and way smarter than anybody in that room realized. Then the door opened, and Trouble walked in wearing a $50,000 watch. The billionaire investor stepped inside like he was entering a kingdom he owned. He didn't look at the staff, didn't look at the menu, didn't even look at the host. He just snapped his fingers like the whole world was supposed to stop and bow. The host tried greeting him, but he waved him off, muttering something under his breath. When Maya walked over with a menu, he looked her up and down like she was dirt on his shoes. Then he leaned toward the man next to him and said something in Japanese. He said it fast, sharp, and smug. And the moment he said it, the men at his table burst into laughter. They weren't just laughing. They were laughing at her. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just gave a small smile, like she'd heard this nonsense 1,000 times and wasn't about to let it break her stride. The billionaire kept going, making comments in Japanese about her being uneducated, slow, cheap labor, and that she was only good for carrying plates because she didn't have the brain for anything else. His boys kept laughing, pushing each other, whispering like middle school bullies with too much money. The whole dining room started glancing over, realizing the energy had shifted. But Maya, she stayed quiet, steady, almost too steady, because here's what the billionaire didn't. No, Maya had lived in Japan for 8 years. She'd studied business there. She'd worked in a law office there. And she spoke the language better than most native speakers. But she didn't expose him immediately, no? She waited. Let him keep talking. Let him keep digging. Let him get comfortable thinking she didn't understand a single word. She took their drink orders with a calm, polite smile, walked away like nothing happened. And the billionaire leaned back laughing. It's like he'd just put another nobody in her place. He had no idea he'd just set himself up for the coldest, cleanest humiliation of his life. And Maya. She was about to flip his entire world upside down in perfect Japanese. The waitress psycho kept her head down, collecting empty glasses, pretending she didn't hear a single word that came out of that billionaire's mouth. But I'm telling you, everyone in that restaurant heard it. And the billionaire? Man was sitting there like he owned the whole damn city. Legs crossed. Expensive suit. 2 bodyguards behind him like props, and a smug little smile that screamed, "I've never been told no in my life." He looked at Aiko. The way people look at something stuck on the bottom of their shoe, and then he did it again louder this time. He leaned back, stared at his friends, and said in Japanese, "Look at her. She doesn't even understand the language of the country she works in. Pathetic." His friends started laughing like hyenas. Aiko froze for half a second. Only half. Because she was used to this kind of treatment, especially from rich outsiders who thought Japanese service workers were just decorations. But here's the thing they didn't know. Aiko wasn't some random waitress. She grew up speaking perfect Japanese. She'd studied engineering before she had to drop out to support her sick mother. She was brilliant, sharp, quiet, observant, and she understood every single syllable. The billionaire threw at her. She walked to his table calm. To calm, she placed the drinks down without a shake in her hand. The billionaire didn't even look at her. He snapped his fingers like she was a machine that needed rebooting. "Hey, you messed up my order," he said, still in Japanese, still assuming she wouldn't catch a word. Aiko tilted her head. "Very slow, very controlled," she said softly. Still in English, "I messed up." The billionaire laughed to his friends. "She doesn't get it, watch this." He leaned forward, smirking like a villain in a cheap movie, and whispered another insult in Japanese, this time nastier, personal, cruel. The entire restaurant went silent. Aiko didn't flinch. Not one muscle. She just nodded politely, turned around, and walked toward the kitchen. But less than anyone watching, or closely could see it, that wasn't a walk of defeat. That was a walk of someone loading ammo. And the billionaire. He had no idea he was 5 minutes away from public humiliation so brutal. It would destroy everything he thought he controlled. The moment that billionaire smirked, the whole restaurant felt it. That heavy, uncomfortable silence when somebody with too much money thinks they're untouchable. He leaned back in his chair, legs wide, acting like he owned the whole damn building. His friends were recording him on their phones, whispered laughing like high school bullies, and Mia. She just stood there, still holding the notepad, still smiling that slow, polite smile every underpaid server learns to master. But behind her eyes, there was a storm building. The billionaire tossed his hand again, signaling her like she was a pet. "Hey, waitress, since you clearly didn't understand me the first time." Mia cut him off, calm, sharp, dead serious. In flawless Japanese, she said, "Your pronunciation is terrible. Maybe try disrespecting people in a language you actually speak." "Bro." The entire table froze. His friends stopped recording. One of them literally lowered his phone like he'd just watched a car crash in slow motion. The billionaire blinked fast. Confused, embarrassed, and now very, very red. Mia didn't stop there. She leaned slightly closer. Voice low, but slicing clean through the room. "And next time you try to insult a woman just doing her job, at least make sure she doesn't understand every single word you're saying." The sound in the restaurant flipped instantly. From awkward tension to whispers. 2 people turning in their seats because the billionaire Mr. Untouchable looked like he'd just swallowed his own ego. He tried to recover. "Yo, you speak Japanese?" Mia shrugged like it was no big deal. "Better than you speak, Rich. Now, would you like to order respectfully? Or should I bring someone else?" And that's when it hit him. He couldn't talk his way out. He couldn't buy his way out. He couldn't bully his way out for the first time that night. The billionaire shut up, But trust me, this wasn't the revenge. This was just the warning shot. So after that embarrassing dinner showdown where the billionaire tried to flex and the waitress shut him down in perfect Japanese, he thought it was over. He thought he could just walk out, hop in his chauffeured car and pretend none of it happened. But karma? Karma had a fresh pair of Timbs on, and it was ready to stomp. That same night, the restaurant staff were cleaning up. Chairs flipped, floors getting wiped, kitchen cooling down. The waitress was in the back, tying up trash bags, still shaking her head at the billionaire's nonsense. She wasn't mad. She was tired. Tired of people acting like money made them better than everyone else. Then suddenly, one of the cooks barges in like, "Yo, you need to see this." They pull up a live stream. It's the billionaire, drunk, at some rooftop party, trying to show off again. And guess what he's bragging about? Not his company. Not his success. Not his elite lifestyle. He's bragging about how he humiliated a waitress who couldn't even speak proper English. Switching the whole story, acting like he destroyed her, his friends were laughing. Cameras were rolling, and he was too hammered to realize the whole world could see him. But then he slips. Up big time. He starts talking about things he shouldn't be talking about. Things he thought were just billionaire secrets. He starts naming illegal deals, backdoor money transfers, how he bought off a government official, how he gets rid of problems with cash, all on camera, all recorded, all instantly clipped and saved by thousands. The cook looks at the waitress and goes, "Yo, you realizing what this means, right? You didn't just clap back earlier. You're about to expose a whole criminal empire." And she just stands there, frozen, because in that moment, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about every worker he ever stepped on, every immigrant he insulted, every person he thought didn't matter. Her hands started shaking, but not from fear, from power, and she whispered, "He messed with the wrong woman tonight." By the next week, things in that restaurant felt different. The billionaire walked in like usual with that same smug little grin, but this time, folks weren't impressed. Employees whispered. Customers paused mid-bite. Even the manager looked like he wanted to crawl under a table, and Lisa, she stood tall, calm, confident, because she already knew what was coming. The billionaire sat down and snapped, his fingers for service like he always did. But nobody moved. Not a single server. Not even the new trainees. He got annoyed quick. He barked, "Where's the staff? Do they not know who I am?" Lisa finally walked up to his table, not scared, not faking polite, just straight. Powerful truth in her voice. She said, "Oh, they know exactly who you are. That's the problem." His jaw froze. He wasn't used to people talking back. He said, "You're lucky I haven't shut this entire restaurant down. You think exposing me in Japanese made you special?" Lisa smiled like she'd been waiting for that exact line. She said, "No. What makes me special is what happens next." Right at that moment, the glass doors opened, and in walked a group of people the billionaire did not expect. A lawyer, a government investigator, and a translator holding a thick folder of documents Lisa had helped compile. The billionaire went pale. "Real pale," he whispered. "You didn't," Lisa answered. "I told you to stop disrespecting people. I told you I understood every word, but you kept running your mouth. So now, you get to deal with the consequences." The investigator placed a folder on the table so loud half the restaurant turned around inside. Evidence. Paper trails. Hidden accounts. Illegal transactions. All the shady business that billionaire thought nobody knew about. He stuttered hard. "Where did you get that?" Lisa didn't blink. "You gave it to me. Every time you bragged, every time you talked trash in Japanese thinking I couldn't understand. Every detail you flexed, I wrote it down." The whole restaurant was silent. You could hear a spoon drop. The billionaire tried to stand, but the lawyer told him to sit back down. He wasn't calling the shots anymore. Lisa leaned forward and said slowly, clean and cold, "You insulted me. You disrespected me. You underestimated me. Now you're gonna lose everything." In every language, his hands shook. For the first time, he looked small, tiny even, like his money couldn't save him. Lisa turned around and walked away. Like a queen who just conquered the whole building. The staff started clapping. The manager bowed his head in shame. And the billionaire sat there breathing like he'd forgotten how. Because the trap he set for her. She flipped it and slammed it shut on him instead. The moment that billionaire opened his mouth again, the whole restaurant felt the shift. His voice got loud, sharp, arrogant, like he thought the whole world was supposed to clap when he disrespected someone. He leaned back in his chair, smirk on his face, acting like he owned the air everybody was breathing. He told her she should be grateful. He even spoke to her. He told her she was just a waitress. He told her people like him run the world, and people like her serve it. The tables around him went quiet. Forks midair, customers exchanging looks like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. But he didn't see any of that. He was too busy feeling himself. He was too busy flexing money he thought made him untouchable. And the waitress, she just stood there, calm, composed, almost amused, because what he didn't know was this. He wasn't talking to some random girl trying to make rent. He was talking to someone who spent her entire childhood in Tokyo. He was talking to someone who grew up speaking Japanese better than he could ever dream. He was talking to someone who knew exactly who he was and exactly what he was hiding. She leaned forward slightly, voice soft but sharp enough to cut stone, and replied in flawless, elegant Japanese. Every syllable was perfect. Every word hit like a slap he didn't see coming. The billionaire's jaw dropped. The room gasped. And suddenly, the man who tried to embarrass her was the one shrinking into his seat. He tried to laugh it off. Tried to say he understood everything, but it was obvious he didn't understand a single thing, including how bad he had just messed up. Because she didn't stop. No. She kept going, switching between Japanese and English like she owned the room, revealing piece by piece the things he prayed nobody would discover. She mentioned the offshore accounts he thought were secret. She mentioned the illegal deals his company buried under fake paperwork. She mentioned the employees he fired to protect his profits. She mentioned the investigations that were already circling, and she said it with confidence, like she had receipts. Because she did. The billionaire froze. The color drained from his face. His little smirk disappeared like it was never there. People started filming, whispering, pointing. The mighty billionaire, who spent years tearing people down, was finally getting exposed. In a restaurant he thought was beneath him, and while he panicked, the waitress just smiled like the whole situation was nothing but light work. The tables turned so fast it felt like the universe itself said. I walked back into that restaurant the next day like I owned the damn place. The door hadn't even finished swinging shut when the billionaire spotted me. His whole face tightened, like he'd just bitten into a lemon made of pure regret. And right behind him, the same waitress he tried to humiliate, except today. She wasn't scared. She wasn't quiet. She stood tall chin up, eyes locked, hands steady. I nodded at her once. She nodded back. Game time. The billionaire tried to stand, but his knees damn near buckled. He stammered, "What? What do you want? Money? An apology?" "I don't." I cut him off with a single snap of my fingers. Two investigators walked in real clean suits, real cold eyes. Not security. Not police. Federal auditors. The billionaire went pale instantly. He knew exactly what that meant. He tried to bolt for the back exit, but the waitress slid in front of him, and in perfect, flawless Japanese, she said, "You insulted the wrong person. You lied to the wrong people. And you finally got caught." The whole restaurant froze. The billionaire looked at her like she was a ghost from his past. Then she dropped the bomb. "I worked for your Tokyo branch. I saw what you hid. And now they know too." The billionaire's mouth opened and closed, no sound came out. Man looked like a fish flopping on the deck. I leaned over the table, calm as ever. "You should have just treated people right." But hey, some folks only learn when the fire hits their own house. The auditors handed him a folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Inside? Emails, offshore accounts, fake invoices, employee exploitation records, stuff that could end a career or start a prison sentence. The billionaire sank into his chair like gravity doubled. And the best part? The waitress didn't shake, didn't flinch, didn't back up 1 inch. She stared him down like she'd been waiting years for this moment. "Remember when you called me stupid?" she said softly. "Well, let's see how smart you sound in court." The restaurant erupted in whispers. Phones came out, cameras turned on, people filmed him the same way he laughed at her. Tables turned, spotlights shifted. Karma delivered express shipping, and he couldn't run from any of it. This was the moment everything changed. By the time that fancy hotel shut down for the night, the billionaire thought the drama was over. He strutted out like he'd handled everything, as if humiliating a waitress and getting exposed in perfect Japanese was just another Tuesday for him. But nah, that man had no idea the real storm was warming up in the kitchen. Because Mia, she wasn't done. Not even close. She walked back to the break room, looked at her co-workers, folks who'd been bullied by that billionaire's company 4 years, and said one quiet sentence that hit like a grenade. "We're not victims anymore. Tonight, he's eating his own mess." Her manager blinked. Everyone leaned forward. Then she broke it down, step by step. Voice steady like someone who finally remembered their worth. This man's company launders money through charity events. He hides assets under shell corporations. He's been bribing local inspectors for years. And I've got it all recorded in Japanese, English, and subpoenas ready. Silence. The whole room shook. One chef whispered, "Girl, you about to end a billionaire's whole career?" She smirked. "No, I'm about to make him confess it himself." So here's where Mia played for chess. She didn't go straight to the police. She didn't run to the press. She told the hotel manager, "Invite him back tomorrow night. Tell him the hotel wants to apologize privately. Exclusive VIP experience." Billionaires can't resist the word exclusive. And sure enough, the next night he showed up wearing a $12,000 suit and a smile slimier than expired sushi. He walked in like he owned the building, like last night hadn't even happened. But the security cameras had been repositioned. The private room had new microphones. The staff had been coached. And Mia, she stood there with a tray in her hand, calm, collected, and dangerous. He froze. "You again?" He spit. She bowed. Perfect Japanese etiquette, then said softly, "Welcome back, sir. Tonight's service will be unforgettable." His ego puffed right back up. He sat down. He crossed his legs. He smirked. "Good. Maybe this time you people won't embarrass yourselves." Mia stepped forward. "No, sir. Tonight, you'll handle that part yourself." He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before he could blink, the giant LED panel on the wall lit up clips, screenshots, emails, recordings, transactions. His face drained color, like someone unplugged his soul. The staff didn't talk. They just stood there, watching him squirm, realizing for the first time in his billionaire life, he wasn't in control. Mia leaned in, voice soft, but sharp enough to cut steel. "Last chance to tell the truth. On your own terms?" He shook his head, sweating through his expensive suit. "This is illegal." "You can't," she interrupted. "That's funny. You had no problem when you broke laws?" He opened his mouth. And that's when the door opened. A translator, a legal advisor to journalists, and a very familiar government inspector who happened to be Japanese. The billionaire's jaw fell open. You set me up." Mia smiled. "No, you set yourself up. I just pressed play." The whole restaurant had gone dead silent. The billionaire sat there, frozen, still trying to act like he had control. But his hands were literally shaking on the table, and that's when she leaned in just a little. Not scared. Not angry. "Just done," she said. "You think money makes you untouchable? Let me educate you real quick." Then she pulled up her final card, the one she was saving for the perfect knockout. A voice recording. She pressed play. And his own voice blasted through the restaurant speakers he didn't know were synced to her phone. It was him, talking to his assistant, laughing about stealing investor money, bragging about forging documents, even mentioning the offshore account he thought nobody knew about. The entire staff froze. Customers turned in their seats. Phones came out. Everyone hit record at the same time, and the billionaire. His jaw dropped so hard it might as well have hit the floor. He whispered, "Turn it off. Turn it off." But she just shrugged and said, "Why? You weren't embarrassed when you insulted me in 2 languages. So sit down and enjoy the encore." He tried to stand, but 3 investors walked in behind him. 3 men in suits. They had been sent the files. 2, their faces were stone cold. One of them tapped his shoulder and said, "We should talk. Right now." The billionaire's face turned pure ghost white. He knew exactly what that meant. The trap wasn't coming. It was already locked, and she was the one who pulled every step together in the whole restaurant. They burst into applause, not for him, for her, the quiet waitress he thought he could humiliate, who just tore down a billionaire with nothing but intelligence, receipts, and perfect Japanese. Everything snapped on a random Thursday night. The billionaire walked back into the restaurant like he owned the air people breathed. Same expensive suit, same arrogant smirk, same little entourage walking behind him like they were paid to clap. But this time, staff didn't scatter. They watched, and the waitress. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She stood there calm, polished, collected, like she already knew the ending of a movie he hadn't even seen yet. He opened his mouth to fire another slick insult. Something about her barely understanding English, let alone Japanese. She cut him off with one sentence. Perfect Japanese. But this time, it wasn't just flawless pronunciation. It was evidence. She exposed every single thing he'd done overseas: his tax evasion, his corporate harassment cases, his shady bribes, the offshore accounts he thought were invisible. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't rant. She didn't scream. She just spoke the truth. In the language he used to humiliate her, the entire restaurant froze. Phones came out. Cameras rolled. Live streams went up. His bodyguards looked at him like he was already finished. He tried laughing it off, but his own assistant stepped forward and whispered into his ear, "She has documents." "And the embassy already called?" "They know." His face drained. The billionaire who used to bark orders like he was a god suddenly looked small, like a man trapped in a story he didn't write. He tried walking toward the exit. She stepped aside, not blocking him, just watching him crumble. He reached out to push the door open. Before he left, she said one last line. In English this time, so every soul in that building felt it. "You should have tipped your waitress. Instead, you tipped your whole damn empire over." He stumbled out next morning. Every news station was running the same headline: "Global billionaire under investigation." After viral restaurant confrontation, his stocks crashed. His companies panicked. His board fired him before lunch, and the waitress. She didn't brag. She didn't post. She didn't chase clout. She just showed up to work with the same calm smile. But now the entire restaurant treated her like the queen she always was. Revenge didn't need fists. Revenge didn't need yelling. Revenge didn't even need a plan. It only needed one thing: a woman he underestimated, and a language he thought she didn't speak.